And we already know that our biogenic trait is to avoid comfort, whether it's physical or emotional discomfort. We avoid discomfort. We don't like discomfort. We retreat from it. But if I'm going to be different than my beliefs that are keeping my identity in place, if I'm going to be different, I have to act against what my typical behavior, which is going to be uncomfortable for me. I might believe that I'm bad at public speaking. Yeah? So in order to break through that belief, I have to start public speaking. I have to go against it. If I don't, if I believe I'm bad at public speaking, then I will never go out and be a public speaker. That will determine my life. My life will be someone who is not a public speaker. Right? So if I want to break through that, I have to act against that belief. Does that make sense? Where it's my belief in who I am is determining my life. I am good at this, I'm bad at that. It's determining my life. Whether I am good at something or am not, it's not the point. I might want to be a photographer, but I've never photographed before. So I'm not going to be great at photographing. So I need to take on that behavior until I get good at it. But if I just take a photo and it's a bad photo and go, I believe that I'm not good, then I'm going to reinforce that. There's a great quote by Henry Ford that says, whether you believe it in a thing or you don't, you are right. Or whether you believe you can do a thing or you don't, you are correct. Whatever you believe will determine the outcome. I've seen it many times in my races. I used to be an adventure racer, expedition length adventure racing, where it was a 500-mile race in deserts, jungles, wherever they put you, somewhere extreme, and we had to race out of it. If you're not completely committed to this belief that you can do it, you're not going to do it. Because there are so many obstacles along the way that as soon as that belief that I'm not going to do it gets justified, I'm out. It could be, there was one race where I was losing a lot of weight. I got flesh-eating bacteria and the fungus got into my body. I had dengue fever and flesh-eating bacteria, and my body was breaking down. And I remember one team we were at this remote place, and this one team that we were racing against called a helicopter to come pick them up. And I was teetering between getting on the helicopter and not. And it was only because of my teammates' determined belief in me, and which inspired my belief in me, that I was able to keep going. But it was that belief that I had, which was unwavering not unwavering, was my core belief was that I could finish, that I had the strength to finish. And so against the odds, I went on and kept racing. Whereas if I had a lack of belief in myself, I would have made another choice. And there are facts, of course, that influence us outside our beliefs, for sure. But all we're discussing now is what you have control of, which is your belief in yourself. Your limiting belief or your positive belief in yourself. So we're going to talk about breaking through in a second. But I want to answer a couple of questions here. So there's someone, surely acting against your belief is just like, what's it say? So there's something blocking it, your fear. Working through it, traveling, see more. Just like acting against your belief is, it's, the fears are the unknown, which is outside the belief of what I know. So I have a knowing, this is the world that I'm familiar with. Outside of it, I don't know that. So I have a fear of that unknown. And so that's going to determine my life. That's going to keep me stuck in my loop. That's going to be my glass ceiling. So I won't have a life outside of that. It doesn't mean that my life won't change, as I mentioned before, because these loops, I'm getting different rewards for it as I progress. I'm getting different rewards, but I'm still running the same pattern. Because if I don't run that pattern, I don't exist. Meaning, I don't exist as an identity. I exist physically, but I'm not being my identity because I'm running this loop. Let me go to a question, see if this works. Should we agree with a racist in order to disarm them? If you don't give them agreement, they will defend their belief. So the only hope you have is to give them agreement. Doesn't mean you believe it too. And this is a big one. So I want to make sure I explain it. So if I go to someone who is a racist against, I don't know, any race. Maybe it's not a race. Maybe it's pigmentation. Someone with freckles. They're against people with freckles. Yeah? And I go in there and go, hey, you should like people with freckles. They're fantastic. They're going to defend, automatically, they're going to defend why people with freckles are not good. And they'll point to things, oh, one time there was this person with freckles and he came in and stole my job. In order for me to have the possibility to open the window, the possibility to have change, I have to come in with curiosity. Oh, tell me why. Oh, well, there's this guy who stole my job, had freckles. Oh, okay. So has your job ever been stolen with someone who didn't have freckles? Well, maybe. And you just keep going down this pattern, but they can't be defensive. They got to be in agreement. So I have freckles, so I might like people with freckles. So as I go down the road of agreement, they will start to break down their argument themselves. And that's how you can get people to shift their belief, is when they break down this argument that they have, this defense that they have, they break it down themselves. I don't know if I explained that well. In order to have hope to change someone's mind, you have to first move past their defense barriers. And you got to remember that giving up your belief is it's almost like a death in a sense. It's a death to your identity to give up a belief, because that's all you're familiar with. So if I'm asking this person who hates people with freckles, and maybe he has a whole community who hates people with freckles. Maybe this community, they're validated, they keep validating each other. So if I ask this person to change, they're not only losing who they are, because we're made up of our beliefs, they're losing their community too. So they're not defending their argument against people with freckles, they're defending the whole validity of their life. I hope that makes sense to understand the grandeur of shifting the belief. And we have all these little beliefs in ourselves, and we got to shine light on it, or else we will have a fixed outcome. You might have a very good life, which is great. I'm not suggesting that everyone should change their lives. No, but you want to have free will to choose it. You want to be able to choose the life you have. And so it's understanding these beliefs. What about when you have the experience? What we've done. So when you experience something, I believe this is the question. When you've had an experience of something, so it might be that jumping in cold water feels bad. That's my experience, that's my belief, based on the past experience. So it's true for me. So I've had that experience, and every time I try it, it's the same experience, it's cold. Well, we know now with this that we can actually act against it. We can shift our physiology to warm it up. So I can get in cold water, I'll have the experience of cold, but I can actually warm it up. So if I have the belief that, hey, that's cold, and it's always going to be cold, and I'll never be able to survive it, I won't have that experience and won't have the possibility of shifting. I know many people who won't hop in a cold tub with me because they very strongly believe that it's just going to be discomfort. And there's other people who act against the discomfort, break through it, because they believe in the benefits of it. I'm not sure if I answered that well. So you can just afterwards in the comments ask me again and I'll try and answer it better. There's another question here. How can our country, so divided in our political beliefs, come together? We're divided by progress or conserve. There are the progressives that like change, and the conservatives that want to keep them the same. But the conservatives, the ones that want to keep it the same, only want to keep it the same a certain period. They don't want to go back too far. They want to conserve an idyllic period. There are tribes in all over the world that want to conserve their way of life. So they're conservatives. So it depends what period you want to conserve. So understanding that someone wants to conserve because of a belief of safety. This worked for my ancestors, my heritage. It works for me to keep it like this. Okay, everything's working, don't change. If you come and change, it's not going to work for me anymore. Then there's people who are like, it's not working for me, let's change. So there's this juxtaposition between what works for a person. And so understanding that's what's going on, I think, is step one. So the tribes that I'm talking about, these, like the Aborigines, there's the song lines, if you've ever heard of these song lines, there's these tribes that travel at the pace of their song. And that song was developed to determine, so they arrived at certain places in their path at certain times. So they want to arrive, in spring when these fruits are on the trees. So they were singing about the progress of nature. Oh, the sun's rising at this place, this bird is coming and singing this song at this time. And they're going along to sing the song, and they arrive at the pace of the song at the time when that fruit tree. They kept singing that. They conserved that way of life by staying in that pattern because it was working. Now, if it wasn't working for them, they would have to progress. The worst thing you want is to progress in the wrong direction. So I was kind of a roundabout way of answering the questions about the politics, but it's understanding the people's beliefs and giving it up, what that means. It's a threat to their lives, to themselves, to their communities. It's a threat to them in order to give up these beliefs. There's a couple of questions that are longer answers, so if you ask them in the comments below the post today, then I can take the time to answer them. We just started to unpack this as a really big conversation, and I just want to touch on it today because for us to start realizing how we're keeping ourselves stuck. And if you start looking at how we defend our beliefs, next time you get in a conversation, start watching it, start observing yourself, start observing others, and you can start to see where you have these walls and this belief, see where the belief came from. Did you have a direct experience with it from the past, so it doesn't exist in your future, it's from the past, or did you inherit that belief? Did it come from someone else and you're now just repeating that belief? So start to break this down and you'll start to understand that that's what we're completely made up of. That's how our life is determined by these beliefs. And there's a lot of freedom on the other side of it. There's a possibility of anything on the other side of it. If I'm not cobbled by these beliefs, I have the freedom to do anything, to become anything, to do anything with my life. And so it's really important to start to understand this aspect of ourselves and how we're limited. All right, so keep asking the questions in the comments below this post, which I'll get up as soon as possible, and we'll keep the conversation going because it's a big one. Because giving up your beliefs is like jumping off a cliff. Everything you know about jumping off a cliff is death. And I'm like, no, you'll float, jump, try it, trust me. So it's very scary to give up those beliefs because that's what's tangible. That's how we know we are who we are. That's how we know the life we have. So it's a very scary thing. And I'm not suggesting that everyone should give up their belief, but you want the freedom to be able to choose what you have.